A fence gives your property a sense of privacy, but when it's rotting, parts are falling down, or parts are even missing, it's time to fix and replace. Lisa, Emma, John, Manuel, and I are going to explain the process of how to replace a rotten fence post. As years pass, the wood on the fence begins to decay. Rotting fences may not be noticeable until boards start to cave in. You can be certain that your fence is rotting if you frequently have to resecure boards that keep falling off. It's important to analyze your fence prior to replacing the post, because if the fence is in poor condition, you might want to just replace the whole thing. If you realize that only a few posts are rotten, then it's okay to just replace the ones that are not up to par. Today, we will educate you on how to prepare the rotten fence post for removal, how to actually remove the post, prepare the new area for the new post, and finally, securing the new post. Lisa will now provide you with the steps on how to prepare for the fence to be removed.
Thanks, Megan. So imagine you get started working on your fence, and a couple of steps in, you realize that the fence isn't lining up the way it needs to. So in order to avoid such a situation and to help you avoid such a situation, I'm going to go over some initial steps that you'll need to follow to prepare the rotten fence post for removal and ultimately make the process go as smoothly as possible. So the major points that I will be going over here are firstly safety, as safety is key in any home improvement project and home construction project. And I will then go over the various steps that you'll need to follow to mark and remove the portions of this rotten fence post to ensure that the rest of the fence remains as stable as possible, and also keep costs as low as possible. So with safety is key, as I just said, in any construction project, as accidents do happen. So there are various precautions that should be taken before beginning the project. And Tim Eaton of Expert Village in his 2008 video states that when working especially on fences, it's important to wear gloves to prevent injuries caused by splinters. And additionally, when using a power saw, which you will be using in this project, you will need to wear safety goggles, as debris can fly out and injure your eyes in the process. So additionally, with the use of a power saw, you will need to check your user's manual and ensure that you are using it as appropriately as you are using it appropriately. So having ensured that the safety precautions have been taken, the next thing you'll need to do is clearly mark the portions of the fence. As this image shows here, you'll need to mark the portions of the fence that you'll be removing. So as I said, you want to maintain the integrity and the stability of the rest of the fence. So what you want to do is cut directly above and below this railing to ensure that you can separate the rotten post from the rest of the fence. So in doing so, you're giving yourself kind of a guideline for where to cut with the saw. So having drawn these lines, you will then proceed to cut along these lines with your saw. And at this point, you might want to also consult your user's manual to ensure that the saw is set to the appropriate setting so that it does not cut into the railing as you're cutting along these lines. So having cut this portion of the rotten fence post off, you can then knock out that middle portion with a hammer, and that will give you a picture such as this. And this is from Roger Cook's, the landscape contractor Roger Cook's instructional video. And this is actually what you'll be left with, and you can see why you only want to cut right above and below the railing, as now the fence is essentially the integrity of the rest of the fence can be maintained, and it'll be very easy at this point to separate the rotten post from the rest of the fence. So just a brief recap, safety is very important throughout the process as a whole, not just in these beginning stages. So it's important to make sure that you're taking all the necessary precautions. And then you'll clearly need to mark above and below the railing to make sure that you have a guideline as you're cutting off that piece of wood and making sure that the integrity of the rest of the fence and the stability of it is maintained throughout. And finally, you will knock out that middle piece of wood, giving you a clear separation that you can then use in the following steps. And I will now hand it over to John, who will explain exactly what you need to do having prepared this fence post.
Thanks, Lisa. So, after knocking out the wood with the hammer, you may have noticed the fence swinging a lot while you did it. This is a definite sign that the fence is affected by rot at its base. So then, it sounds like you should remove this fence post, and this section will be telling you how. First, we will start by having you prepare the area, and then finally ripping out the post. First, before you do anything, we recommend that you take a cordless drill and remove any possible screw being used to secure the rotting post to the fence and rails. And now, before considering finally removing the post, since the rotting post is still a supporting structure to the fence, we must first make up for that support before removing it. You can accomplish this by placing a 2x4 under the fence on each side of the soon-to-be removed post. A 2x4 is a piece of wood measured to be 2 inches thick and 4 inches wide. Feel free to stack 2x4s on top of each other if necessary to provide proper support of the fence. If you look at the image on the left, we can see that the 2x4s are placed just so they are hitting the underbelly of the fence to provide the necessary support. At this stage, you can now pull back on the fences on either side of the post, and you may end up seeing the post fall right down to the ground. If it stayed secured, however, just pull on the post upwards and it should most likely come right out. If the post ends up breaking and leaving a part of itself in the ground, however, you should attempt to dig it out like in the picture on the right. According to HomeAdvisor.com, in an article from 2005 titled, "How much does it cost to repair a wood fence?" it's recommended that posts are embedded at a minimum of 3 feet into the ground. So the chances of this post breaking off in the ground are very likely since the post was most likely embedded to the same degree. We want to emphasize that removing all parts of the post and any unnecessary wood or wood chips is very important to having a clear base for our new post that Emma will be detailing how to prepare for. So then, I will now pass it off to her.
Thanks, Jonathan. Now, as audience members, you may be wondering, why does fencing pertain to me right now? Well, rhetorically, we're glad you asked. You may not be worried right now, but down the road, it's great information to have in case you need a new one or even a new post. Preparing the area for the new fence post is a very important point in this process, and I'm going to tell you about just that. Enlarging the fence hole, establishing the height of the fence panels, and finally, setting the new fence post in the hole are all involved in this process. First, you're going to start by enlarging the existing fence post hole with a post hole digger. Provided by Democratic Underground, the photo on the left shows just what a post hole digger would look like. You want to use this digger so that your hole isn't larger than it needs to be, like a shovel might provoke. The post hole digger is also used so it's easier to put the new post in. To use the digger itself, you must take it and pick out the dirt of the post hole completely so that the hole enlarges. After doing this, you're going to stretch a tight line from one finial to the next to establish the height of the fence panels, since a finial is the ornament that distinguishes the top of the fence itself. The height of the fence panels is very important because it is the reason your fence post is going to be straight and not unevenly distributed. This picture by thisoldhouse.com shows us just what the tight line would look like, this pink line going across, to make sure that the panels are evenly distributed. Finally, you're going to set the new fence post in the hole, making sure its finial aligns with the layout line. By pushing the new post into the post hole, you can make sure the post itself and the line are at the same height. After doing all of these things, someone like yourself will be able to start getting the new post actually into the hole. Manuel will now tell you about the steps in securing the new fence post.
Thanks, Emma. Now you may be asking yourself, what are we going to do to ensure that the post stays in place for a long time? Well, I'm going to tell you how we're going to secure this fence post in. First, by connecting the panels to the fence post, then by filling in around the post with a layer of gravel, a layer of graded base, and then finally a layer of loam. First, you want to begin by connecting the old fence panels to the new fence post. To do this, you want to insert all the round ends of the fence panel rails to the holes on the fence post, as seen in the picture here. To make this process a bit easier, you can tilt the fence panels until the ends of the rails fit tightly into the holes of the post. Once both panels on each side of the fence post are put into place, You can take the 6-foot level to make sure that all the fence panels are perfectly plumb and that the fence post is perfectly perpendicular to the ground. Next, you will fill in the space around the fence post. You will begin by pouring 3/4 gravel around the base of the post, and pack it in tightly with a 8-foot long 2x3 piece of wood. Then you will fill the rest close to the top, leaving 6 inches with graded base. Graded base is a mixture of 3/4 gravel and stone dust. When applying this layer, you want to apply about 2 to 3 inches at a time while compacting it in until it is all added. This combination of graded base and gravel will add for better drainage of water to prevent the rotting of the post and a longer lifetime of the post. Finally, you want to finish in filling in the hole with a layer of loam. This is a fertile soil, which is really good for the drainage and also really fertile for the growing of grass. The combination of these 3 layers is the most recommended method when installing a new post or replacing a fence post. You may have heard the method of putting a post in concrete. Well, according to an article by the Post Star, this is a big no-no. The reason for this is because when you put posts in concrete, you're actually speeding up the rotting process because the water seeps in between the spaces between the post and the concrete. Also, when the post does rot in this scenario, it is very difficult to replace the post because you have to dig out the whole concrete foundation. Now that we have the post securely in place, we'll go back to you, Megan.
Thanks, Manuel. Weather plays a large role with the condition and aging of your fence. Wind, rain, and snow will morph the wood quicker than a climate that is cool and dry. When inspecting, start at the bottom of your fence post. Usually rot starts from the ground up. A damp ground can be a major cause of rot. Check by scraping a nail against the wood at the bottom of your fence. If the wood does not stand up to the nail and actually decays, you are likely to have wood rot. Today, we showed you how to prepare a rotten fence post for removal, how to remove it, preparing the new area for the new post, and finally securing the new post. And with this information, you will have the knowledge to make your fence look and feel brand new. Keeping your fence looking new is not the only perk to replacing rotten fence posts. It also is safer for anything and anyone that enters your backyard. Lastly, my group would like to thank you for listening, and we hope that these tips will help you in the future so that you know what signs to look for and how to replace it on your own.